Aries, there's a very specific story coming through in your past energy, and I feel like this is going to hit pretty strongly for somebody. What I'm seeing here looks like the ending of a serious long term relationship. For some of you, this could have actually been a marriage or a connection that you genuinely believe was going to last. And I don't feel like this was an easy ending. We have the Three of Swords sitting here with the Hierophant, and that immediately makes me think of heartbreak connected to a commitment. This could have been somebody you built a life with. You may have shared a home, finances, responsibilities, or there may have simply been an understanding between the two of you that this was supposed to be your person. But somewhere along the way, something happened that changed all of that. Because right above this, we have the Ace of Swords. And the Ace of Swords is truth, it's clarity, it's something being said or revealed that you really can't take back once it's out there. So I feel like there was a conversation here, or possibly information that came to light that was incredibly painful. And Aries, whatever this truth was, I don't think you could just overlook it. Because look at what happens next. We go directly into the Six of Swords and the Eight of Cups. Somebody leaves. Somebody makes a decision that, as painful as this is, they can't continue down the same road anymore. And with the Eight of Cups especially, I don't necessarily think this person walked away because the feelings were gone. Sometimes the Eight of Cups is exactly the opposite. It's knowing that you still have an emotional attachment to something, but also realizing that staying there is hurting you more than leaving. And that's what makes this feel like such a significant ending. I feel like somebody had to choose themselves here. But what I find really interesting is that what happens after this separation, because we have the Eight of Pentacles sitting at the very beginning of the reading. And I feel like somebody threw themselves into work. Almost like, if I stay busy enough, I don't have to think about this anymore. Work may have become the distraction. Money may have become the focus. Building stability may have become the focus. And when I look at these additional cards, that message gets even stronger because we're seeing the house, the fish, the seed, and the anchor. So after something in their emotional life fell apart, I feel like this person started concentrating on the parts of their life that they actually could control: their home, their work, their finances, security, and their future. And there may even be something new that they're trying to build financially. The seed can represent something that's still in its beginning stages, something that has the potential to grow into much more over time. So somebody here could have started a new job, taken their career more seriously, started saving money, begun working toward a financial goal, or simply decided, you know what, I'm going to get myself back on solid ground. But then we have the anchor, staying put for now. And I think that's really important because emotionally, I don't see this person rushing to replace what they lost. I don't see somebody immediately saying, okay, who's next? Let me get back out there. Actually, I see almost the opposite. I feel like this person has intentionally pulled themselves back. They may not want to date right now. They may not want another serious relationship right now. Or if they are talking to people, I don't know that they're emotionally ready to give somebody everything just yet. There's still something they're processing. And that Six of Swords feels important here too because they're moving forward, but I don't think they've completely figured out where they're going yet. They're leaving something behind before they've necessarily decided what the next destination is. But for now, they're working, they're rebuilding, they're getting their finances together, they're creating their stability, and they've given themselves some space to figure out what they actually want their life to look like after this relationship. And Aries, I want you to remember that as we move into this present energy, because if this is describing either you or somebody connected to you, we're starting this reading with someone who has already experienced a pretty significant emotional ending. They've walked away from something they once believed would last, and right now, they're trying to figure out what comes next. So, as we move into your present energy, I want to clarify something before we go any further. Because this is a general reading, this could absolutely be your energy that I'm picking up on, or this could be the energy of the person you're connected to. So, take the role that fits your situation and don't try to force yourself into one side of the story. But whoever this is, they're stealing. Aries, as we move into your present energy, there's there's somebody still dealing with the aftermath of the ending we saw in the past. And honestly, there's almost a dark night of the soul feeling around this person right now. We have the Five of Pentacles underneath the Ten of Pentacles. And considering the long-term relationship, Aries, as we move into your present energy, there's someone still dealing with the aftermath of the ending we saw in the past. And honestly, there's almost a dark night of the soul feeling around this person right now. We had the Five of Pentacles underneath the Ten. And considering the long-term relationship of marriage we saw earlier, I feel like the ending affected this person on a more than just an emotional level. They may have been accustomed to a certain amount of financial security within that relationship, a shared household, combined income, shared expenses, or simply the security of building a life with another person. And now all of that has changed. For some of you, you may be the one experiencing this. For others, this may describe what's happening behind the scenes in your person's life. Either way, somebody here feels financially stretched. And remember what we saw in the past. Somebody was throwing themselves into work. I think we're beginning to understand why. They're not only using work to distract themselves from the emotional pain, they're trying to rebuild their life. They're trying to regain that sense of security they once had. But here's where I see some really encouraging energy. We have the fish with the North Star. Money, resources, and abundance combined with direction and guidance. So whoever is struggling financially right now, I don't feel like they're going to remain in this position indefinitely. They're finding another path. And this could be a career opportunity, a new source of income, a business or project beginning to grow, or simply this person realizing that they're capable of creating financial security independently. They may not see the entire road yet, but they're beginning to find their direction. Emotionally, though, that's a different story because we have the Five of Cups with the Six of Cups. Somebody is looking backward. They're remembering this relationship. They're thinking about what happened, what went wrong, and what they lost. And there could be quite a bit of regret here. This person may even miss more than just the relationship itself. They could miss the life surrounding it, the home, the routines, the familiarity, having somebody there. In the future, they once imagined they were building together. So Aries, if you're the one who's been doing all this reminiscing, this may be describing your emotional process. But if you're wondering what's happening with your person, these cards could be showing us that they're thinking much more about this connection than their behavior has suggested. Because now we have come into something I find really interesting. We had the Eight of Wands with the stork. That's movement, communication, and change. Something that has been sitting still starts moving again. And with the Six of Cups already bringing the past so strongly into this reading, I think there's a real possibility of communication between these two people. Someone reaches out. Now, whether that's you or your person is going to depend on which side of this reading you're resonating with, but whoever has been sitting in this Five of Cups energy, thinking, regretting, and looking backward, may eventually decide they can't just sit with those thoughts anymore. And whatever is said appears to change this whole dynamic. I'm not ready to call this a reconciliation yet. The cards haven't shown us enough to make that leap. But I don't think the situation remains exactly as it is right now. Because we have the King of Wands with the Church, which is bringing the subject of commitment, marriage, and shared values right back into the picture. That's significant because we started this reading with the ending of what appeared to be a very serious commitment. And yet here again, the relationship may have ended, but emotionally, the story between these two people doesn't feel completely settled yet. And at the same time, whoever we're following here is rebuilding their own life. They're working, recovering financially, and learning how to create stability independently. So we have two things happening at once. Someone is learning how to move forward on their own, while part of them is still looking backward at the person they left behind. And with the Eight of Wands and the Stork sitting right in the middle of this present energy, something between these two people appears to be shifting. Now we need to see what that shift is actually leading to. And Aries, this brings us directly into the challenge, because although we can see things beginning to shift, I don't know that somebody here is emotionally ready for what's coming toward them. We have the Seven of Swords, the Four of Pentacles, and the Doorbell. And the first thing I feel when I look at these cards is somebody who is very guarded. They're holding back, they're keeping their emotions close to their chest, and everything we've seen in this reading that actually makes a lot of sense. This person has been through a painful ending. They've experienced heartbreak. They've had their sense of security disrupted. And they're still in the process of rebuilding themselves emotionally and financially. So when I look at the Seven of Swords here, I'm not immediately reading this as somebody lying or deliberately trying to deceive another person. This feels more like emotional avoidance. It's somebody who may not want to talk about what they've been through. They may not want another person to see how deeply this past situation has actually affected them. They could even be telling themselves, I'm fine, I'm over it, I'm ready to move forward. But emotionally, I'm not convinced they're completely there yet. Because right beside it, we have the Four of Pentacles. And the Four of Pentacles holds on. It protects. It doesn't easily surrender control. So I feel like somebody has built a wall around themselves after this breakup. And maybe that wall served a purpose for a while. Maybe they needed that time alone. Maybe they needed to concentrate on work, money, and rebuilding their stability. But now something is beginning to change, because then we have the doorbell. And this is where the challenge becomes really interesting to me, because the doorbell tells me that someone is arriving. There's somebody at the door. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether I think this is somebody from the past returning or whether this is somebody completely new coming into the picture, because at this point in the reading, I don't think we've been given enough information to know that yet. But I do feel that somebody is approaching this person's life, and that's where the challenge comes in. Because what happens when you've spent all this time protecting yourself and suddenly somebody gives you a reason to open that door again? Are you actually ready? Or are you bringing that pain of the previous relationship into whatever happens next? Because I think that's the warning contained in this challenge. You can't walk into a new chapter carrying all of the emotional wounds from the old one and expect those wounds not to affect it. And that the same would apply if this is somebody from the past. If two people come back together without dealing with what separated them in the first place, eventually those same wounds are going to resurface. So whether this doorbell represents somebody old or somebody new, I feel the message is ultimately the same. Healing has to happen first. Not because this person needs to forget what happened, not because they need to pretend they weren't hurt, but because there's a difference between remembering what somebody put you through and allowing that experience to determine how you respond to everybody who comes after them. And I think that's the real challenge here. Somebody may be approaching the door while this person is still standing behind it with their arms crossed and protecting their heart. Part of them may want to open it. Part of them may be curious about what's waiting on the other side. But another part of them is saying, I'm not going through that again. So Aries, I don't think the challenge is necessarily whether love is available. The challenge is whether somebody is emotionally available enough to receive it, because somebody appears to be arriving. We just don't know yet who's standing on the other side of that door. Now, moving into your future energy, Aries, this is where I really feel the entire tone of this reading beginning to change. Because after everything we've seen you moving through emotionally, I see someone new entering the picture. And I want to emphasize new, because this energy feels very different from the connection we've been talking up until this point. You're showing up here as the Queen of Wands. And I love seeing this for you, because this tells me you're getting your fire back. You're becoming more confident, more independent. And that's something very magnetic about your energy. It's almost as though you spent so much time grieving what happened in the past that you may not even realize other people are beginning to notice you again. And then we have the King of Swords coming towards you. And this person feels mature. This is somebody that's very intelligent, direct, very intentional about the way they approach relationships. I don't get somebody who plays a lot of emotional games or leaves you constantly wondering where you stand. They may initially come across as someone very serious, reserved, or even sometimes a little difficult to read. But underneath that exterior, I actually think there's someone here who wants something meaningful. And the personality cards really reinforce that because I'm getting somebody who is responsible, dependable, hardworking, and very much a planner. They like having their life together. They may be established in their career or carry some type of leadership or authority in what they do. This feels like someone who takes their responsibilities seriously and thinks about the future rather than just living completely in the moment. But here's another side of them that I find interesting. With this Cancer moon in the fourth house energy, underneath that cool and collected King of Swords exterior is somebody who deeply values emotional security, home, and belonging. This could be someone who is very attached to family or who ultimately wants to build a home and a life with somebody. There's a sentimental side of this person that you probably won't see immediately. And look at where this may happen. We have the garden, which can represent crowds, parties, gatherings, public places, and social events. So I wouldn't be surprised if you meet this person while you're out somewhere, like through friends, at an event, a celebration, or simply in some kind of like social environment. And I almost feel like you're not looking for them when it happens because we have the stallion energy. And this is where things get interesting because the attraction here looks really strong. I'm talking major chemistry, passion, desire. This doesn't feel like somebody you have to convince yourself to be interested in. There could be an immediate physical pull between the two of you. And after what you've been through, Aries, I actually think this is really significant because this person may remind you that you're still capable of feeling something again. The sun tells me you're moving into a much lighter, happier chapter. And with the broom sweeping away what you no longer need, I see you finally clearing out the emotional remnants of that previous connection. You're not forgetting what happened. You're just reaching the point where it simply doesn't have the same power over you anymore. Even that Five of Swords at the bottom of the deck feels different now. You can finally look back and recognize that whatever happened in the past just wasn't serving you. You don't have to keep fighting for it, analyzing it, or carrying it forward, because something very different appears to be opening up for you. And I think the biggest surprise here, Aries, is that this new person may enter your life right around the time you finally realize that you're ready to let the old one go. So, Aries, your final advice here is really about patience. You don't have to rush yourself through this healing process, and you don't have to have everything figured out right now. What you've been through has affected you deeply, and I feel like part of your advice is simply allowing yourself the time and space to process that without putting pressure on yourself to immediately move on. But patience doesn't mean staying stuck. There's a difference between giving yourself time to heal and continuing to hold on to something because you're afraid of what comes after it. And that's really important in this reading because we've already seen that something new is trying to enter your life. So I feel you're being asked to let things unfold naturally. Don't force the past to come together. Don't force yourself into something new before you're ready. Just continue focusing on yourself, rebuilding your confidence, and getting back into that Queen of Wands energy that we saw in your future. Because the Queen of Wands isn't chasing anybody. She's confident. She's magnetic. She knows what she brings to the table, and she allows the right people to come towards her. And when this new person does come in, try not to immediately assume that history is going to repeat itself. Take your time getting to know them. Watch their actions. Let them show you their intentions rather than allowing fear from the previous relationship to fill in the blanks for you. I really feel like you're entering a period where you're learning that you can protect your heart without completely closing it. You can have boundaries and still be open to love. You can remember what the past taught you without continuing to live in it. And most importantly, you don't need to rush toward whatever comes next. Let this next chapter reveal itself to you. Because Aries, what you're leaving behind may have caused a tremendous amount of pain, but what I'm seeing ahead for you feels so much lighter. So be patient with yourself. Be patient with the process. That's what this temperance energy is all about. You're not being asked to forget the past. You're being asked to heal enough that the past no longer decides your future. So, Aries, hopefully this reading has resonated for you. If it has, please hit the like button and please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.